Josh Pate and I both agree, there's no way for Congress to get involved in NIL without that just resulting in money transferring away from the players back into the hands of administrators. Okay, so for all you guys who don't like NIL out there and think it's killing college football, just understand what you're arguing for. You're not arguing against NIL. You're just arguing for administrators to get that money instead of the players. Administrators who do nothing, who work for the NCAA and have done nothing but make college football way worse than it could be. So I don't know how you guys feel about it, but what can Congress do to regulate NIL that doesn't just result in money going away from the players?
I'll tell you what, let's see what Josh Pate thinks about it. Be sure and click that like button, subscribe if you haven't to this point, and you have to set those notifications on because we have more coming. Tennessee's players to hit the podium. We'll have those interviews, those press conferences all on the YouTube channel. So set the notifications on. Here's Caleb Calhoun with Josh Pate.
Caleb Calhoun with Off the Hook Sports here, speaking to Josh Pate of Late Kick. Josh, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I wanted to talk to you for a while, actually, about SEC expansion and conference expansions, because I agree with a lot of what you say, that I don't think it's the best for the sport. But I also love what you say about strength of schedule and things like that. Do you think with the SEC getting so big in a year or two that they're going to have to start factoring in strength of schedule when they actually determine the conference champions, not just college football playoff?
I don't think they'll do that because that would say out loud what a lot of us know, which is there's more value behind certain wins because it's tougher to get certain wins. But when you're dealing with the conference now, you got to have the integrity and value of a conference win mean a conference win. You can't say, hey, you beat Florida, therefore we're going to value that more than beating Vanderbilt, although we know it's tougher in a given year to beat Florida than Vanderbilt. So I wouldn't say that. I'd say when you get to the playoff selection committee process, that's when your strength of schedule value really matters. It probably bleeds into the territory you're talking about.
So what do you think is going to happen? I mean, because the reason I bring that up too is that if everything is equal next year when they're playing 8 games, no legitimate person could look at Texas' schedule and Alabama's schedule and think that their record is going to be the same thing, if it's the same.
I mean, yeah, on one hand that's true. On another hand, any given year, it's tough to see the quality of a team 12 months out. We're sitting here right now and don't know the quality of some of these teams in 2023. So it's tough, to sort of speculate what the value of a win on a team schedule will be 12 months from now, if that makes any sense.
Right. What do you think is more important? Because it looks like I think in 2 years we're going to do the 3-6 model, not the 1-7. But either way, you're going to have less rivalries, but you'll play a lot more teams over a 4-year period. Would you rather see college football teams have more annual rivalries or more playing a bunch of different teams over 4 years?
Both. There's a way to accomplish both, by the way. So I would love for you to see. I would not only love to see an enhanced conference scheduling model and a more dynamic factor in that. I'd also love to see a model that's nationwide, not just SEC, where you have a certain amount of guaranteed out-of-conference Power 5 competition. I would love to see a model where you play 9 conference games, you play 3 guaranteed Power 5 out-of-conference games. I really don't care if you schedule an FCS as your 12 team. I don't care about that. I just care that I'm looking at maybe like a Michigan schedule right now, and they will not be challenged point spread-wise in the single digits until November. It should never happen in any major conference. And so I think we'll probably get to a point in the expanded playoff where that's less of a fight.
So our fan base is largely Tennessee. That's where we're based out of. What chances do you give them against Georgia this year? Because last year it was 27-13, but I thought it was 45-0.
Yeah,
Georgia won it too.
A couple of things to watch. Number one of the big questions Kirby Smart talked to us about yesterday was, will we be able to affect the quarterback? Pass rush. Everyone just assumes it'll be there. Well, let's just say maybe it's not there to the degree we're used to with Georgia. And then let's say later in the year they go into Neyland and maybe you're down a corner. Maybe the injury bug has bitten them. Those are the kind of things you can't predict, really. But those are the kind of things that if you combine that with what we know the home atmosphere is at Neyland, think about the Bama game last year, it's not the craziest concept in the world. It's not a machine, okay? It's a team full of people. They're really good. They're better than pretty much anyone in the country. Not invincible. So it's not crazy. It's not a prediction I'm making right now, but it's not crazy.
You brought up a point, because one of Tennessee's biggest advantages now is NIL, because they have the largest NIL collective. But you brought up something that I've agreed with for a while, which is NIL is not going to outweigh the NFL benefits for these 5-star athletes. Where does NIL rank in recruiting? Is it just another factor along with location, NFL, coach, or does it have a little more weight maybe than things like location and fans and stuff like that?
It's the first time around versus second time around. So the first time around, for a lot of guys out of high school, it's a huge factor. And it's at least somewhat a factor for 90% of kids. It's a major factor for a certain chunk. When you talk about the portal, it's interesting because it's so much more transactional. You rarely, for instance, see photo shoots and whatnot with kids in the portal. They don't care about this stuff anymore. They want to know the nuts and bolts, ins and outs. Can you develop me? It's very transactional. What does the NIL market look like? And so it matters everywhere. But there's still, and this goes underreported, but there is a large chunk of the student athlete population out there that understands just because you're the highest bidder doesn't make you the best place for me to play. Now there's going to be an NIL market for a player, but I can tell you, not the names, but I can tell you a number of players I have knowledge of just this past cycle who turned down additional easily 5 figures worth of money per year to go to a place because they knew it wasn't the best fit for them.
And overall, because Sankey talked on Monday about NIL wanting Congress to get involved, my concern with that is there any way for Congress to get involved that doesn't just involve transferring money out of the hands of the players and back into the hands of executives and officials?
No. It's a short answer. No. You don't have a way to do that. And I haven't sensed any confidence from anyone here, in an official capacity at least, that they will have much success on that front.
He's Josh Pate with Link Cook Josh. This is Caleb Calhoun with Off the Hook Sports. Caleb Calhoun with Off the Hook Sports. You guys have a great rest of your day.
It's Caleb Calhoun and Josh Pate. Caleb, some of your takeaways from your conversation with Pate?
I think what really stood out with me was that Pate and I both agree that it's laughable for the SEC when they expand to 16 teams and you're playing an 8 or 9 game schedule and so many different games are going to be played. It's laughable for them to act like every conference win is equal. Okay, and the idea that they don't want to factor in schedule strength to determine their conference champion is going to be hilarious next year when you look at Texas and Alabama's schedules. And you just, if the teams are the same this year that they were last year, if all the teams that they play are the same next year that they were last year, it's laughable to think that Texas and Alabama's, if they have the same record, would have the same value.
Yeah, but couldn't we say the same thing about Georgia's schedule this year, or even Tennessee's schedule? I think if you're part of a conference, I don't know how you would weigh that and view a schedule differently if that's what you're handed by the conference year in and year out.
Well, the reason it's the same, so Georgia plays in the East, and so does Tennessee and everybody. So your goal is to win your division, and relatively divisional teams almost do play exactly the same schedule. There's only, out of 8 conference games, 2 games are different from any team in a divisional game. But with no divisions and an 8-game schedule and 16 teams, the door's open there are 3 SEC teams that have totally different schedules next year, like 7 different games. And I'm just thinking, I don't think that's theoretically possible at that point to say that the champion is real based on record in that way.
Jero, I would argue this, though, that any of those teams, if they don't play as tough of a schedule because of the rotation, or they do play a tougher schedule, if you can't be at the top 12 at the end of the year, then you're not in the top 12 at the end of the year. I don't believe you deserve to be for a national championship. I mean, ultimately, you've got some wiggle room. We're not talking about the top 2 where a bad schedule could put you in a bad position. We're still talking about the top 12.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when we see this college football playoff with the 12 teams, the drop-off from 1 to 12 will probably be massive. So I agree that beating Georgia and beating Vanderbilt should not weigh the same in the new conference scheduling. But I also agree with you. I don't know how much it will matter because the difference between 12 and 13 probably will be easier to decide than right now we have the difference between 4 and 5.
Well, what I would say to push back, though, is, again, we're not talking about college football playoff. They're going to factor in the schedule. I'm talking about when the SEC is selecting the top 2 teams to play for the SEC championship game. I think the SEC themselves should factor in schedule strength at this point.
Well, I mean, I understand that too, and you're going to have a log jam, so you're going to have some sort of tiebreaker. We've had that situation crop up before where there was a 3-way tie towards the end of the year at one point. So whether they go by points scored against common opponent or whatever the case may be, that's ultimately, I think, the way they're going to have to work it out. I don't know how you could weigh a conference win against one opponent as higher over another conference opponent. That to me seems even more complicated than the system of the three-way tie, which is pretty complicated already.